Bon Jovi survived almost everything that wiped out their generation. Bad reviews, hair metal jokes, grunge burnout, a collapsing record business, band members leaving 40 years of changing taste. But the one thing Jon Bon Jovi couldn't simply outwork forever was his own voice.
My vocal cord, and one of them was atrophying, and the strong one was pushing the weak one around, and it was literally dying.
That's a rough thing for any singer to say. But for Jon Bon Jovi, it hits even harder because this whole thing, the band, the catalog, the stadiums, the brand, the brotherhood, the machine, was built around one impossible job. Walk out there every night and give it everything you got.
I strive to do 3 hours every night.
That on every note of every song, every one of those 15 nights, I was like, is that okay, is that okay, is that okay? From song to song, lyric to lyric. So I'm smiling at the audience, but on the inside I'm dying. Dying 1,000 deaths.
This is not the story of a band that had one big album and got lucky. Bon Jovi did get lucky, but only after they worked their butts off to make it happen. This is the story of a Jersey kid who built one of the biggest rock bands in the world, survived the death of his own era, kept the machine running for 4 decades, and then had to face the one enemy he couldn't manage, fire, hire, out-tour, or out-sing. His body. Long before the stadiums, Jon Bon Jovi was not waiting around to be discovered. He was already acting like the guy in charge.
And for me, it was always single-minded focus on music. I loved it more than it loved me, but eventually I learned the craft. I had that single-minded focus, realizing that you couldn't play other people's music and intend to have a career. So I quit my own cover band.
A lot of kids want to be rock stars. Jon was already thinking like a lifer. And he was from Jersey, for crying out loud. It wasn't Hollywood. It wasn't the Sunset Strip. It was bars, cover bands, original songs, and trying to turn a local scene into a way out.
So we came from that kind of working class background where all things seemed possible. That was before there was a band. Quit my own cover band in order to do only original material, even if it wasn't mine I was doing in the first band. I had to learn how to do it. I wasn't the guy you wanted opening for you because I would do anything to win the night.
That's Jon. Already competitive, already restless, already dangerous to follow on stage. Not because he was the best singer, not because he was the best guitar player, because he was the guy who treated every gig like it was everything.
I grew up in public. I was 21 when I got a record deal. I had the same record deal with the same company 41 years later.
There was no second choice, Scott. This was it.
The first real crack in the door was Runaway. But even that didn't just happen. Jon sent the cassette around and got nowhere. Because the music business geeks can't see it until the public tells them it's good.
And I wasn't getting any response to Runaway as a cassette that I was sending around to anyone and everyone. I thought, who's the guy? A DJ. Let me go out there. And the station was so new they didn't have a receptionist. So I literally knocked on the window of the booth and he said, shush. I was overheard Runaway and said, you know, it's a hit. I said, I know. Now what?
Jon knew what he had. Now what are you all gonna do about it?
And they started to play it and Doubleday owned that chain of stations. So now I'm on 8 stations nationwide. And I finally got my record deal, which I still have the same record deal today.
Just based on the merits of the song?
David Bryan was there before the world knew the name. But he's not the lead of the scene, he's the witness.
We were together since when I was 16 and a half. I had my driver's permit. You know, I grew up in Edison, he grew up in Sayreville, and he had a cover band, and it's because of his first cousin who I went to school with. Said, hey, Joseph Bon Jovi said, hey, my cousin's looking for a keyboard player, and it was a cover band. I'm like, sure. And I drove over the bridge, and that's when our journey started. You know, we were in high school, and we would play up and down the Jersey Shore and get home at 5 in the morning. We had a 10-piece band that made $150, so it was not lucrative. And got home at 5 in the morning and was up at 7 for school. You know, and I did that 5 days a week. Jon was just working for him, sweeping up floors, bringing coffee to everybody. Rolling Stones were there, and they would give us the 4 in the morning to 10 in the morning slot. because nobody wants to work from 4 in the morning to 10.
That's the grind before it happens. The famous cousin, the famous studio, the graveyard hours, the kids sweeping floors while legends made records in the next room. And then the tape nobody wanted became the tape. Suddenly everybody wanted.
We went to 11 record companies, which is all of them at the time, and everybody said no. Where all of a sudden we were the #1 requested song on radio in the country.
And around
With
what year?
Unsigned, 1983. Whoa, so now there's a bidding war. Everybody wants us now.
That's not luck. That's rejection with follow-up. The first Bon Jovi record begins with Jon. But the story gets interesting when it becomes a band. Because from the beginning, there was a tension baked into the whole thing. Jon got the deal, Jon had the voice, Jon had the name on the sign. But Bon Jovi only became dangerous when the right guys got around him.
When I got a record deal in 1983, I had gotten it under the guise of just being a solo act, but not really wanting to just be, a solo act, creating a band. I had gotten a record deal without the band and had written Runaway without the band. And so I put the band together for what I thought would be 3 weeks. And it's been nearly 30 years.
And Richie Sambora saw that tension from the other side.
Being in Bon Jovi, there's 5 of us. It's basically Jon's band, his thing, because he's the voice of that band.
When we first met, he was thriving to be a kind of, a solo artist in a Bruce way or a Rick Springfield way. I just said, American rock and roll band. Before Slippery, I went, man, come on, man, let me in. We got to do this. And this is, to make this a band situation.
Jon had the drive, Richie brought the other voice, the guitar, the harmony, and the push toward being a real rock and roll band. Then came Tico and Alec, who weren't kids playing dress up. They had already been through the club circuit, dead-end deals, bad money, all of it.
A lot of club bands. Mostly club bands.
18 years, man.
We played when we were kids together, bar bands.
I was a jazz drummer, and that was my running years. The fact that you have the combination of the guys in the band the way it is what forms the sound. And we come in and kind of make it a Bon Jovi song.
Doc McGee threw them into the world the old-fashioned way, open for everybody, play everywhere, and learn how to survive crowds that didn't come to see you.
Because I didn't want to be the great special guest that you can get on a bill, cheap. Because I was really tired of being hindered as an opening act and being told you can't do that, you can't do that. You don't ever let me open for you because I'm going to hurt you.
That is a frontman saying, if you give me 45 minutes, I'm going to steal the room. Subtle? No. Effective? Yes. The first 2 albums built the foundation. They didn't make Bon Jovi immortal. They made them tougher.
Man, you sold us out.
We toured and toured and toured and toured.
We didn't sell platinum, which is 1 million. We sold 800,000. And the record company's like, well, if you don't sell 1 million the next time, we're going to drop you. So Slippery When Wet was the do or die.
Now we're back to the band, but Jon stays central. Because this is where Jon's instincts, Richie's chemistry, Desmond Child's outside writing, and the band's live seasoning all collide.
We knew the lyric was right. We knew the chorus was right. We knew everything was right. And we were like, Motown bass line. But we didn't work it up until we got to rehearsal. And that bass line wasn't developed until we got into rehearsal with the band. It took shape, in all honesty, when Tico and Hughes started to play.
Bringing for the first time some outside writing. Desmond Child was key in that. No, but it just hit a nerve, and it was the right time and the right place in the world.
All the planets and the suns and the moons lined up, and bang, and we sold 30 million records.
And suddenly, the band that had been clawing its way up became the band everybody had to deal with.
The basic difference is they played us on radio this time. We did it our way, and the kids accepted it. The kids really put us where we were.
The world remembers Slippery When Wet as this perfect explosion of MTV. Big choruses, denim, leather, sweat, and big hair. But the band didn't experience it like some polished master plan. They were just the same Jersey band, doing the same thing, only this time radio opened the door and the kids rushed in.
But we're the same band, you know? We haven't changed either personally or anything. But yet it hasn't quite sunk in.
It hasn't sunken in with me yet, you know? I mean, I still want to run out to the front and take a picture of the marquee outside, you know? And then you go out and prove it live and the kids are really happy and the people are real happy.
And then there was Living on a Prayer, a song so overplayed it should be dead by now. Except it isn't. Because underneath the key change and the talk box and the giant chorus, the thing is built on a working class panic that never really goes out of style.
Oh, that song is about everybody. It's all about inclusion of how everybody has been in that spot in their life where they're going, are we gonna get through it? Can we make it together? My dad got laid off from his job. My uncle got laid off from his job. And lyric and people go, hey, wait a minute, I feel like that.
That's why it worked. Not because it was subtle Bon Jovi. We're not exactly sneaking into your house with a poetry pamphlet. It worked because the feeling was simple, huge, and true.
Tommy and Gina were born, you know, in a world of fiction, but based in truth. I just always felt that there was an opportunity to lift people's hopes and dreams and aspirations because I came from that era.
Our philosophy is that we're not the show, but the kids are the show. We're just the host of the party. You know, when we play rock and roll on stage together, man, we have a good time, man. We look at each other and we're happy to be there, you know? So, and then the kids come in and they see that the band is happy and the hosts are having a good time at the party. So they're gonna have a good time.
Once Slippery hit, everything got bigger. The rooms, the crowds, the money, the expectations, the hair, the entire ridiculous human carnival. And Bon Jovi kept doing what got them there. Touring.
The key to the band's success is that we tour, and when we're done touring, we tour.
We're a road band. Bon Jovi is a good rock and roll band. You have to see us live to really know what we're about. We just go out there and we start out 100 miles an hour and we end 100 miles an hour. Maybe we end 200 miles an hour.
That's great when you're hungry. It becomes something else when the hunger turns into a global touring machine.
We go out every night like it's the last show of our lives.
You know, you're doing 260 shows a year in those days, and then go do a record and go do another 240, and you're always running, so you're in this treadmill and never gonna stop.
At first, the road is freedom. Then it becomes home. Then it becomes the thing you need a vacation from. Except the vacation is another tour.
You are in a lot of hotel rooms by yourself many, many times, especially when you're out for 16 and a half months. My fatigue level was a little bit, you know, was very high, but
you know, after 4 consecutive albums and tour in a row and in the good 7, almost 8 years of living out of a suitcase, we were tired. We were really tired.
We did 256 shows, then went home for 2 weeks, wrote for the next record, went to the studio for a couple months and did another 256.
That's not a schedule. That's a controlled demolition. The follow-up to Slippery was New Jersey. And on paper, it was another absurd victory. Hits everywhere, stadiums everywhere, Bon Jovi everywhere. But inside the band, the machine was starting to take payment.
You want it to happen again because it's such a good feeling, you know? I mean, Slippery did about 13 or 14 million copies. So to do that again would be a lot of fun. I'm not. I tell you the truth. The Slippery tour was so long. It was like 17 months. I'm expected in my mind to get back to work.
Get back to work. Not go live the dream, not party across the world work. And by the end of New Jersey, work was taking a heavy toll.
From 1983 till 90, I lived on the road. The only time I'd get some sleep would be in a dressing room like this. The only time I'd eat, like I said, was on the plane. And if you're sick, too bad, you gotta go to work. And if you're, you miss home, too bad, you're gonna be in London for Christmas. I was given as much as I had to give, but sometimes it felt that I didn't have enough. I wanted to give even more. And I would reach and there was nothing in the gas tank.
And it wasn't just Jon.
I remember playing the Hollywood Festival and Alec falling down on stage a couple times. just so burned, so exhausted, so high. He had to go and dry out, you know? Tico had to go and dry out. We all had to go and dry out. Somebody somewhere should have told us, you guys are tired, go home. Because the machine was telling us to go. The managers, the agents, the lawyers, everybody.
This is the part where the rock star dream starts feeling like a triathlon, except you just did one yesterday. Bon Jovi didn't break up after New Jersey, but they had to stop pretending the first version of the band was sustainable.
We really needed a break, and we planned a break, and we wanted to get away for a while.
We were so tired, we weren't really communicating at that point too much. Everybody needed to go find their respective lives, you know what I mean? Like come down to earth and be a normal person for a little while again.
When it was over, we never said goodbye. We just, like, everyone caught different airplanes at different places and went to sleep for a while.
While Bon Jovi rested, John made Blaze of Glory, Richie made Stranger in this town. Side projects are always dangerous in bands because somebody inevitably starts wondering who needs who. But what's interesting is, both guys came out of the solo project sounding like they still needed the band.
And it was satisfying because I wrote it and produced it. On the other hand, it wasn't as much fun because whenever we had done it in the past, you'd be able to call the other four guys and go, yeah. This time I picked up the phone and there wasn't anyone there. So even if this record sells 50 million records and I go on to a solo career bigger than that of the band, I could never do anything for the first time again. Any stadium, any arena, any club, any gold, platinum, multi-platinum album, I did it with them.
I think this record was something that was inevitable in my career. I've dedicated my life to the band for the 10 years. People know me as the guitar player of Bon Jovi, but they don't know me as the complete artist. John and I are supposed to get together in October and write some new material and see what we got.
The next thing became Keep the Faith. No, it wasn't just the haircut. Though yes, the haircut did a lot of press.
I think that if anything, this album was a bit of a soul cleansing for me, you know. When I got a record deal, I was 20 years old, you know, and now I'm 30 years old and was sort of growing up in public. But after 4 albums and 4 tours, the burnout set in.
We just came back into it with a clear head, knowing that this was the second chapter.
Keep the Faith wasn't Bon Jovi trying to become grunge. It was Bon Jovi trying to become adults without losing that thing. The early 90s wiped out a lot of bands from Bon Jovi's world. The old theory is that grunge killed hair metal. But Bon Jovi were never fully Sunset Strip. They had the hair. Sure, everybody had the hair. But underneath it, John was writing Jersey bar band songs about hope, work, survival, and getting out.
I just would not have fit into the LA strip scene. For good or bad, you know, we were lumped into a musical genre because we were young and had long hair, and that's what the times were.
So you better evolve as a man and as a songwriter, because otherwise you're going to be the guy that got stuck when grunge came along, and suddenly my peer group are wearing flannel shirts because they think that's going to fool the audience. That was career suicide. We didn't worry about the grunge movement. We just evolved. And not only did we survive grunge, but we thrived.
The 90s were a little tough for everybody, I think, because in the US, the movement, the musical movement was so drastic and so anti-established.
But it continued with New Jersey and it continued with Keep the Faith.
Because we had our sound now.
Yeah.
Bon Jovi survived the 90s because they didn't show up pretending to be Soundgarden. They showed up as Bon Jovi, just older, sharper, and a little less likely to wear something you'd see at Hot Topic.
What I've always said is we've been a bar band that just plays big bars. Right? For the first time in my heart of hearts, we're a great band. A great band doesn't have to speak. They know.
Then came 2000. A lot of bands from the 80s were already nostalgia acts by then. Bon Jovi somehow got a second life with It's My Life, a song that sounded like a comeback, but also like a mission statement.
Like It's My Life, for example, you know, I mean, that was really selfishly written. The chorus of it truly just related to who we were. Of course, everybody wants to have control of their life. Everybody that took that song and said, no, it's my life, it's my life. But, you know, when we write together, we both write the words, we both write the music, so we complement each other's playing and singing.
Is Bon Jovi a democracy?
It's a benevolent dictatorship. Well, it's always going to be my name on the top of it, because you sort of have to have a vision.
There it is again. The tension that made the band work and eventually made it crack. Jon had the vision, Richie had the chemistry, the band had the sound, and the audience kept showing up, even when the record business changed underneath them.
Yeah, as soon as internet came in, there's another avenue for people to listen to music. You can't really follow the old rules. I think it's, well, ticket sales, if you're sold out, we've done well. But then we put the shows on sale and they're all sold out. So we're going, we get it.
The album charts got weird radio change, the internet achy old business. But Bon Jovi could still do the one thing they had always done, sell a ticket.
The reputation that we've had live always spoke for itself, regardless of if records were popular in that market.
You can never predict the future, but you just can't rely on the past. So you got to keep creating, keep moving forward, and keep trying it. I mean, you know, you don't copy a trend because it's going to be gone by the time you copy it, it's over.
That's how Bon Jovi avoided the museum. They used the hits, but they didn't only live inside them. And when the crowd kept coming, the band knew that things still worked. By the 2000s, Bon Jovi had become something most bands never get to be. Not just an old band with old hits, a band whose songs have become part of people's lives that changes the job. Because at that point, the audience isn't just coming to see what you're doing now. They're coming to hear pieces of their own lives thrown back at them.
I love playing that song every night live, and it's 50,000 people know the words to it every night. It's wonderful.
That's the deal Bon Jovi made with the crowd. You bring the memories, they bring the songs, everybody sings the part they already know. It sounds simple, it isn't. A band can be great and still not have that.
You know, you could see as some great band and not know any of the songs and go, well, that was entertaining, but I didn't relate. If you have both.
That's the whole thing. Bon Jovi had both. They had the live band reputation. They had the songs that people could actually carry around with them. Not every band has that. Some bands are brilliant and somehow still make a crowd look like they're waiting at the DMV. Bon Jovi had choruses. Big ones. Ridiculous ones. The kind that make 50,000 people suddenly believe they're all in the same bar in New Jersey.
And the songs are anthemic, so people like to sing.
Demographic of the band is 6 to 60. I mean, I saw little babies in the audience last night, and I saw people that were older than me.
That's when a band stops belonging to one generation. The first fans bring their kids. Then those kids know the songs. Then suddenly you're playing to people who weren't alive when the record came out, and they're still yelling the chorus like they helped write it, which, in a weird way, they kind of did. Because Bon Jovi songs were built to be completed by the crowd.
But you give everything you got. It's nothing to do with, look at me. It's that energy that you give and you get.
That is why the live show mattered so much. It wasn't just performance, it was proof. Proof that the songs still worked. Proof that the band still mattered. Proof that whatever critics said in whatever year, the audience had already voted with its lungs.
We try to do a little bit from every year, you know, in our shows. And there's nothing worse than going to a concert and not hearing a classic song that you grew up with, different every day. We change our sets every day. It's not the same, so it keeps it fresh for us.
That's the trap, and the gift of being a legacy band. You can't ignore the old songs because people paid to feel something they've been carrying for years. But you can't just sleepwalk through them either. Because the second the band stops caring, the audience can smell it. And Bon Jovi's whole reputation was built on not sleepwalking.
John's very good at it, making a stadium feel like a living room. And he reaches out to the people and gets them going.
In 2013, the chemistry that helped build the whole thing disappeared. Richie Sambora didn't show up. And in a band like Bon Jovi, that wasn't just a missing guitar player, that was half the voice of the band suddenly gone.
There literally was a show that night. You know, there's 20,000 people waiting in the arena, and he didn't show up. So it's heartbreaking. You're playing to 20,000 people, and there's a black hole on the stage, and you didn't come the next night or the next night or the next night. So it's been 11 years, and he never came back into a room with the band and said hi.
That's Jon's version. But Richie has his version too.
This obviously was his personal perception, and his whole documentary was his perception, his baby. The celebration would have been the great songs that we wrote and how we sold all those millions of records and played for people for 30, I was in the band for 32 years.
Yeah.
Everything. There's one thing that's not in there, and it's everything. Yeah, and anything that I did well was unmentioned. So I just shut up.
That's the problem with a band story. Everybody was in the same van. Nobody took the same ride.
Oh yeah, it's totally a brotherhood. We were 5 guys against the world. You know, the band is number one. It has to be ahead of whatever you do in your life.
That kind of commitment can build something huge. It can also become impossible to live inside forever.
There's life. Because we worked really, really, really hard. I mean, you know, especially Jon and I, because we had to write songs, and I was always a good co-producer on the records.
It wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just burnout. It wasn't just ego. It was 30 years of music, pressure, work, friendship, money, family, expectation, and human damage all sitting in the same room. Bands are not machines. They just get treated like one until somebody breaks. And then, after everything Bon Jovi survived, the final threat wasn't grunge, critics, MTV, radio, the internet, or Richie leaving. It was Jon's voice.
My vocal cords, my vocal cord, and one of them was atrophying, and the strong one was pushing the weak one around, and it was literally dying.
And it was just a 3-year miserable recovery.
This is where the story changes. Jon could outwork managers. He could outlast critics. He could drag the band through trends. He could rebuild after Richie. But he couldn't just command a vocal cord to behave.
It got so extreme on that 2022 tour where I tried to beat it into submission that on every note of every song, every one of those 15 nights, I was like, is that okay? Is that okay? Is that okay? From song to song, lyric to lyric. So I'm smiling at the audience, but on the inside, I'm dying 1,000 deaths. And it was killing me emotionally. Therefore, it was killing the band emotionally because everybody knew that I was suffering in pain and mental anguish.
That's not vanity. That's a frontman who knows the standard. This band built its name on long shows, big choruses, and Jon reaching the back row.
I strive to do 3 hours every night.
Now you got to put together a 2.5-hour show 4 times a week for 3 or 4 months. So that's a different game. It's incredibly physical. And we don't take breaks. It's the preseason till the Super Bowl. Live game situation, it's so much different. It's so much heavier. It's so much more energy.
That's the question now. Not, can Jon sing one song in a studio? Can he be Bon Jovi for 2.5 hours, night after night, without destroying himself?
My hope is to, my intention is to.
But if you're not at 100%,
then I'm done. You know, it would be that simple.
I won't compromise who we are as a band live because I like to think we're a pretty darn good band. The legacy mattered too much.
So after all that, what is Bon Jovi now? Is it still a band, a brand, a memory, a machine waiting for the voice to come back? Maybe it's the songs. That's the one thing everybody seems to agree on.
You know, we'll pass away. We'll leave. Music will be forever. Songs are for us. And when we're done, it's yours. You're the character now. You take that song and make it yours, and it's important that people do that.
Magic of a great song is as close to immortality as anyone would ever get. It stays in the consciousness, in the culture, around the globe, and in our case, for generations.
Those great songs that people really took into their lives. And then the other thing would be how the songs translated across this planet.
Richie says he'd come back if Jon can do it.
I had said yes.
because the fans would just love it. Finance, it has nothing to do with that. If he gets it back, I'll go play. I got songs.
David says the band is still standing with Jon.
So he works like a madman to get back on the field. We're there for him, and it'll happen. We said we're from Jersey. It's us versus everybody.
That might be the whole Bon Jovi story in one line. The label said no, radio said yes. Critics rolled their eyes. The kids bought the records, grunge came. They evolved, the business changed. They sold tickets, members left, the songs stayed. And now, after 40 years of outrunning everything, the last fight is the most human one. Can the voice that built the machine come back enough to carry it again?
If it's over, I've had a great life. I'm good with it. I'm not an applause junkie. I don't need the bright lights of the stage. I would really like to go on the road this time because I want to look around at the band. I want to be there with them. Yeah. I want to shine that light on the crowd just to be in the reflection of the light. That's where I'm at. I just want to see that audience.
Bon Jovi survived because they worked harder than almost everybody, wrote songs big enough for strangers to sing together, and treated the stage like proof. But in the end, the thing that made them powerful was never really the machine. It was the human stuff inside it. The friendship, the fracture, the work, the audience, the voice, the songs, and maybe that's why people still care. Not because Bon Jovi were perfect, because they were never supposed to last this long in the first place.
We were the underdogs. We were the guys that shouldn't have made it.
It takes a lot of hard work to get lucky. It's never going to come to you. You have to go to it.
And that's Bon Jovi. They went to it for 40 years. And now the question is whether they can go one more time.